après 16 ans à la législature, dans la bataille la plus serrée depuis 1944. On vient de nous annoncer l'élection de René Lévesque dans Montréal-Laurier.
Notre majorité sera peut-être faible, mais c'est une victoire merveilleuse. C'est une victoire pour les jeunes, n'est-ce pas?
But the Liberals don't have a monopoly on change. At an inn in the Laurentians, 20 people create a new movement, the Rassemblement pour l'Indépendance Nationale. Its founding president is translator André Delmain.
Qui est celui-là, l'établissement d'un pays indépendant, libre, souverain, au Canada français, c'est-à-dire au Québec, sur un territoire québécois.
Journalist Pierre Bourgault joins them. He becomes the RIN's most fiery spokesman.
I knew nothing about any of these things. For me, the idea of independence didn't exist. I was a nationalist, like most people at the time, because we were constantly put down by the English, mainly in Montreal, where everything was in English.
The following year, an Ottawa civil servant, Marcel Chaput, publishes Why I Am a Separatist. Independence is in the air. Now in cabinet, René Lévesque feels lonely in Quebec City. He tells his old friend Gérard Pelletier,
I miss chewing the fat with you, Laurendeau, Marchand, and Trudeau.
This leads to a series of friendly chats that will have historic consequences. For 2 years, these men will meet every 2 weeks, usually at Pelletier's house on Elm Street in Westmount. It's here that Lévesque outlines for the first time his big plans, the nationalization of Quebec's private power companies. Trudeau, opposed to all forms of nationalism, doesn't like it.
We are so far behind in education. Why use $300 million to invest in companies that are already working well?
They have never been close friends. Now they become political adversaries. Their fight will be a struggle of titans. In 1913, in Winnipeg, Tommy, a 9-year-old boy, overhears a frightening conversation. He has a bone disease, and a doctor is saying he might have to amputate his leg. His parents are poor Scottish immigrants. They can't afford the expensive treatment Tommy needs. Fortunately, another doctor will treat him for nothing. The boy retains the use of both legs, but it's a moment Tommy will never forget.
Surely the time has come in Saskatchewan, which has
46 years later, Tommy Douglas is the Premier of Saskatchewan.
Take this next great forward step and set up in the province of Saskatchewan a prepaid medical care program.
Most doctors are afraid they will lose income and their freedom. They react bitterly.
This is like asking the doctors if they would like to try a hanging, and if they didn't like it, it could be undone.
I think we all want a medical care plan, but don't we want one that's not dictated by a man that was a one-time Chicago University communist?
Medicare becomes the main issue of the 1960 provincial election campaign. The Liberals, led by Ross Thatcher, back the doctors and attack Douglas.
The socialists say, elect us, even with a 35% majority, and we'll ram a scheme down your throat.
Now this sort of propaganda, in my opinion, is an insult to the intelligence of the people of Saskatchewan.
Douglas and the CCF win the election with an overwhelming majority. The following year, Medicare becomes law. The doctors still refuse to accept it, and on July 1st, 1962, when Medicare begins, they strike. Only 35 of the province's 725 doctors agree to practice under Medicare. Hospitals are forced to shut down.
We feel we cannot practice under state-controlled medicine. It seems to me the government has given us no choice but to leave.
What good is a medical care program without doctors?
I'm very glad that the plan has gone in, but I'm deeply concerned over the fact that my doctor left me and my 2 children without any proper medical care.
I have a family of 5 little girls. 1 girl is suffering from cerebral palsy. Where will I take my daughter? To Montreal? Will the government pay me transportation? Where will I go? Tell me.
But, sir, this is not the issue.
This is the issue. This is my issue. This is the people's issue.
The government sets out to find other doctors. Ted Tulchinski has just completed his internship. He's back home in Brantford, Ontario, packing his bags for study in England, when he hears about the strike.
The Medical Care Commission was recruiting doctors to set up an alternative service, basically to break the strike.
He supports the principle of Medicare and decides it's worth taking risks.
I canceled my trip to England. I'd already paid for the ticket. I phoned this commission guy and I said, "I hear you need some help." He said, "Yes, bring your credentials. Take the next plane."
He is sent to Priestville, the town where a baby, Karl Derazov, died of meningitis on the first day of the strike.
I drove up there from Regina. They gave me a car. He said, "Well, here's a map. Go there and do your best." The atmosphere of violence was there. I kept a lead pipe under my bed.
But soon he begins to feel more comfortable. He writes to his brother and sister-in-law.
I was extremely impressed with the terrific quality of personality and strength of this grassroots Western farmer democracy. They're strongly for Medicare, and they're backing us up. The nurses at the hospital still resent us and stay loyal to the former doctors, but I think they will work with us. But we have to be very careful because the college is using smear tactics against us as intimidation. It's fairly possible I won't come out of here unscathed. But I wouldn't miss it for the world.
But many citizens support the striking doctors. During the second week, they hold a huge rally in Regina.
We are here to say that this is a bad law.
That same night, 2 men and a woman who had been at the rally show up at the Priestville Hospital. They want someone to go to their farm to certify their mother's death. Ted Tulchinski is the one who has to go.
I was afraid, but there was nothing I could do. It was a lonely road. I followed them far out into the country, fearing this might turn out to be a rough ride. Well, there was an old lady who died. When I realized it was genuine, I figured I wasn't gonna be bashed out in the boonies. After I certified the deceased, I was faced with this excruciating politeness by those who hated my presence, but knew I'd been there when they needed a doctor.
An agreement was signed between the government of Saskatchewan and the College of Physicians and Surgeons.
After 23 days, the doctors accept Medicare, and the time has come for Ted Tulchinski to leave Priestville.
Tension was very high there the day we left. Many people asked us to stay on, but we had to leave. The two doctors came back, opened their offices, and we turned the inpatients over to them the next day.
But he's fascinated by the West. He and some other doctors set up a clinic in Saskatoon. They also open a coffee house, the Louis Riel.
Light up, light up.
We had wonderful entertainment, and the students loved it, of course.
Moons up, nights up.
And Joni Mitchell came, and one of her first professional gigs was there. And I remember saying to somebody, "Hey, she's good."
And at the coffee house, he meets and falls in love with Joan Douglas.
Colors go flashing in time.
Soon after, he meets her father, Tommy Douglas, and naturally, they discuss Medicare.
Oh, Tommy knew it was the right thing to do. In his mind, medical care for all, or health care for all, is part of civilized life.
Within 10 years, the whole country will be covered by Medicare. Behind a veil of prosperity lies a monster, the fear of nuclear attack. Peggy Hope Simpson, a Halifax housewife with 4 children, can't sleep.
I was having nightmares of being in the water with my children, and I knew that I couldn't hold on to all of them. And I always would wake up in a sweat, just in terror.
The Diefenbaker government is also worried. In 1957, Canada joins NORAD, America's Continental Air Defense Plan. 2 years later, Diefenbaker makes a move that reverberates for decades. He abandons Canada's plan to have its own fighter jet. The experimental Avro Arrow, considered the best fighter plane of its day, is scrapped, and all test planes ordered destroyed.
When these aircraft would first be available in general for the RCAF, by that time, they would be ineffectual and inoperative.
Diefenbaker has agreed to deploy American Bomark missiles against the threat of nuclear attack, a job intended for the Arrow. But the Bomark is designed to carry a nuclear warhead. The public is deeply skeptical about the wisdom of Canada becoming a nuclear power. Toronto Star columnist Lotta Dempsey urges women to join together against nuclear weapons.
I have never met a woman anywhere who did not hate fighting and killing, the loss of husbands, the terrible tragedy of children dead, maimed, or left homeless and hungry. Here lies our strength.
Her idea catches fire. In 2 weeks, she gets 600 letters.
If you are going to scream loud and hard about the world situation right now, let me join you. But let us not scream alone. Let us urge the women of the world to join us.
With the greatest prize in the world at stake, their children, women see clearly the possibility of joining to fight for peace without being sidetracked by political, ideological, or religious differences.
A month later in Toronto, Voice of Women is born.
Many of our members, for example, are young mothers who have never joined anything before and who are now becoming vitally interested in world affairs through Voice of Women.
Marion Pearson, wife of the leader of the opposition, becomes an honorary member.
I'm indeed interested in Voice of Women. I think it's a most imaginative and worthwhile project.
Her husband, Lester B. Pearson, is leading the fight in Parliament against nuclear weapons in Canada.
I think it is both unnecessary and undesirable for Canada to become a nuclear power.
Voice of Women chapters spring up everywhere. Thérèse Casgrain, the longtime feminist crusader, carries the banner in Quebec.
Si le Canada est doté d'armement nucléaire, nous ne sommes plus considérés que comme un satellite de nos voisins du Sud. Cette décision est importante pour l'avenir de notre pays.
Peggy Hope Simpson helps launch the Voice of Women in Nova Scotia.
We were just ready to go. Someone said it was like mushrooms springing up across the country overnight. Everywhere, women just saying, okay, here's the agenda, let's get to it.
But by 1961, fear of a nuclear attack is teetering into public panic. Many cities conduct drills.
À l'occasion de l'exercice Tocsin, nous allons étudier le comportement d'une famille montréalaise et voir comment elle peut organiser sa survie pendant une attaque nucléaire.
The Diefenbaker government is under tremendous pressure to accept the warheads. That spring, the new American president, John F. Kennedy, comes to Ottawa.
Geography has made us neighbors. History has made us friends. And necessity has made us allies. We are allies. This is a partnership, not an empire.
The world seems to be hurtling towards the abyss. In October 1962, the United States reveals that the Soviet Union has secretly introduced offensive missiles into Cuba, only 90 miles from the American coast.
Unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. This is a time not for panic, but for calm resolve.
But External Affairs Minister Howard Green is much less sanguine.
Well, I can only say this, that we could be heading for a nuclear war.
President Kennedy orders all American forces on red alert and asks Canada to do the same. Diefenbaker delays for 2 days. But Canada's top military officials decide to follow the Americans without informing the Prime Minister.
All ships of any kind bound for Cuba, from whatever nation or port, where they're found to contain cargoes of offensive weapons, be turned back.
Boarding a foreign ship on the high seas would be an act of war. 2 Soviet ships carrying military supplies are heading for Cuba. The world holds its breath. Six days later, the ships turn back. The Soviets dismantle the missiles in Cuba. Nuclear war is averted. Thérèse Casgrain, the new national president of Voice of Women, writes,
"We have been a hair's breadth from war. Facing the ultimate crisis forces us to reevaluate what is important in life. What do I stand for?"
Women are once again galvanized into action. They go by the hundreds to Ottawa to demand that Diefenbaker refuse to arm the Beaumarks in Canada. Diefenbaker wavers. Then he announces that Canada will keep Beaumark missiles, but without their nuclear warheads. Diefenbaker's solution is untenable. He is ridiculed. It's like having a gun but no bullets. He is also accused of reneging on commitments to Canada's allies.
Canada has made certain commitments to the alliance.
Public opinion starts to shift.
Well, if the other countries have got, if Russia and them have them, I don't see why we shouldn't have them. Because
the shifting political climate brings a startling about-face. Lester Pearson now demands the government respect its commitments.
It can only do this by accepting nuclear warheads.
Peggy Hope Simpson can't believe it.
Oh, we'd invested a lot of trust in Pearson. I was very dismayed. Then I became angry and upset that he would do this. And then came this feeling of betrayal. That was a terribly bitter feeling.
Caught in the middle, Marion Pearson resigns from Voice of Women. Buffeted on all sides, the Diefenbaker government falls. The election campaign is fought on the issue of nuclear arms. In Montreal, Pierre Trudeau is approached to be a Liberal candidate, but he is outraged by Pearson's about-turn.
Le but ne doit pas être l'extension de la possession de ces armes, mais leur abolition avant qu'ils détruisent le monde. Lester B. Pearson, avant qu'il devienne, comme disait mon ami Vadeboncoeur, le défroqué de la paix.
He openly supports a new Democratic Party candidate. After a turbulent campaign, Pearson wins, but only with a minority. In the spring of 1963, Pearson meets Kennedy in Hyannisport. There, he agrees to nuclear weapons on Canadian soil. Nuclear weapons arrive in Canada on New Year's Eve.